Hi, good evening, and welcome to the Ridgewood Public Library webinar. We are in a webinar with our friends over at Noble Class Academy. Tonight, I am joined by William Gill. He is going to be our speaker for this evening's presentation. He is from Johns Hopkins and is an English instructor essay specialist. And we also have the moderator is Justin Kim. He is the director of Noble Class Academy. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over. And just so folks know, this was going to be recorded. So if there are people who missed it, we will email all the registrants the link as soon as it is uploaded. Thank you so much, you guys.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. My name is Justin Kim, as Justin introduced myself. Okay. Thank you for your time this evening. So basically, we're from Noble Class Academy. We're located in Ridgewood, obviously. We offer different kinds of SAT test prep and other type of subject tutoring services. And we also offer college consulting services as well. Before we started, I just want to make one small announcement. So unfortunately, we're not able to offer an online Q&A session tonight, but we already received questions from parents. And I believe the majority of the questions will be answered during the presentation. Some of the questions are not exactly relevant to tonight's topic, but we will definitely reply to those parents individually so that they're going to get the answers they're looking for. Okay, and even after the presentation, we're going to share our contact information. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to contact us. So we're going to try our best to get back to you as much as we can. Okay?
All right. Okay, so.
Okay, today, today's topic is obviously college application essay writing. So, William, yes. What is common application essay?
Well, that is a loaded question. There is a lot to, dissecting the common application essay. First of all, it's an essay that requires 650 words, and there are multiple prompts to this essay. However, in my opinion, looking at the prompt so strictly isn't the best way to approach this essay. If you notice, the sixth prompt that they provide actually says, as we have it on the slide, share an essay on any topic of your choice. It can be one you've already written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. As you can see, this prompt really opens up the essay to almost any single topic that you want to discuss.
Okay.
So really looking at the prompt first and then finding an answer isn't really the best way. The prompts are really just there to guide students into thinking about different ideas of how they can approach the essay. But in my opinion, we should not treat this as a 5-paragraph essay that we write in school. Definitely not. I would treat this essay as a prose or short story. You really want to be able to show your characteristics and who you are. You don't want to just be flat as a paper. When you're in front of the admissions officer, you really want to stand out and become an actual person instead of a piece of paper.
Okay. So I have another question.
Yes.
So basically, not all colleges and universities use common application essays, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Then basically you write a personal statement for common application. Can you use that essay for other colleges as is?
So there are other applications that exist out there. I mean, there's the coalition application, right? There's, even specific schools like, was it Rutgers? They have their own application essay. But if you notice, a lot of their prompts are very similar as well. If you look at the coalition application, I think it's a 3,800 character essay that they require.
Same with Rutgers University.
Yeah, but the thing is that the 3,800, amounts to about 650, right? If you do go over the character limit, there is some editing and adjusting to be made. But generally, yes, for the main essay for any application, the Common App essay, after a few adjustments can definitely be made.
So then also you said this is not like a 5-paragraph academic essay.
Yes.
Right? So you're trying to say that this is more like a story, right?
Yes, very much so. Much like the stories that we enjoy reading, you definitely want your application to your essay to really make into a short story, right? And so kind of show, you know, a little bit of drama. You got to add in there a little bit of growth and all that good stuff, you know, that we expect in our stories.
So the students should treat this as this is like a prose, personal short story.
Yes, definitely treat it as prose, right? So yeah.
Let's move on.
Okay, all right. So
yeah, that's a very interesting phrase. The truth versus a lie versus a based on a story. So what is it, Julian?
So a lot of students say, oh, will the admissions officers kind of research like who I am, you know, just to double check my information. Most often they do not do this, but that does not mean we can just put any type of lies that we want into our essay. So definitely between a truth and a lie, I would definitely pick the truth, right? You definitely do not want to lie. And these are these are professional admissions officers. They know and they are trained to, you know, sniff out lies and stuff like that so that they figure out what's really true. But what I really do like is the idea of based on a true story. So sometimes when we write our essays or prose or our short stories, as I would like to say, we tend to be too specific about the details, the smaller details in our story that really complicate our essay and complicate our message. So sometimes what I would do is I would tell students to, you know, accentuate certain aspects of life or, you know, take out certain details that, you know, would make the story a lot more easier to tell, right? So this way, based on a true story, yes, when we watch movies or read books and it says based on a true story, we know that, you know, certain elements are true. And that is, in my opinion, the best way to approach it, because oftentimes in life, people say the wrong things at the wrong times. But, you know, for prose and short story, we definitely see characters saying the right things at the right time. So kind of, you know, blurring the line between kind of, and the thing is, you don't want to fabricate anything, but you definitely want to have some truth in it. But, you know, you can definitely bring out certain aspects a little bit more. You know, if you want to show a little bit of leadership, you know, you can bring out those aspects a little bit more dramatically, if you would like.
So technically you're sharing like one of your like life experiences, right?
Basically, yeah.
But does it have to be like a positive thing?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's how you spin it, right? There's never like a hard answer to, you know, is it just positive or negative? If we do talk about negative, right, I would definitely refrain from, you know, expanding it beyond, you know, 1 to 2 sentences. You know, sometimes I even suggest students that they reduce their negativity to like a clause even, right? It wouldn't even take up a full sentence, right? So that way you do not want to linger on anything negative. Remember, this is an application, right? You want to paint yourself in the best light possible. So if that's the case, you do need negatives to contrast with the positives to show growth. But I would definitely refrain from staying in the negative descriptions. I would like to kind of get in, get out.
Right. So probably students would like to read some of the successful essays first, right?
Yes, definitely. So before you really, you know, start brainstorming or thinking about how to write the essay, I think the first step is really to see what has worked, right? Like to see different examples. And I am kind of representing my school, Johns Hopkins University. They have a great resource for high school students. If you follow this link, or if you just go on Google and look up Johns Hopkins essays that worked, you know, you'll be forwarded to a link. And they basically post a bunch of essays that the admissions officers found to be very interesting and useful.
So basically those essays are publicly available.
Yes, definitely. So you could definitely take a look, read, you know, see what they do, and, you know, kind of get a few ideas for yourself.
Definitely you don't want to copy.
No, do not copy. Please do not copy.
Just read and how other people successfully handle their essay application process, right?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Then how should I write essay? How should I begin? What's the process in general? Right?
Okay. So how should you write the essay? We always begin with brainstorming. So when it comes to brainstorming, right, obviously a lot of people have done this with their essays in school, right? So you have to gather as many ideas as possible, because oftentimes students say to me, oh, like I have nothing to write about. You know, I have an uninteresting life. But even the uninteresting things can be interesting. And in my opinion, the best way to kind of see what kind of essay you can write about is have a list of your activities, right? And then like on one side, you can have a list of your activities. And on the other side of the chart, you can write down how these activities show growth in character, right? So did you become more responsible through a certain experience, right? Did you gain some sort of insight through a certain experience, right? So if you can quickly jot those down, then you get to kind of see from far away, oh, these are all the different things I can talk about, what really shows, who I am, or like what makes me special, right?
Okay.
So the most important thing, guys, is do not treat brainstorming as a cerebral thing, right? It is not just for memory. Oftentimes when we put it in our memory, it is often forgotten or lost. So definitely I would write it on a piece of paper, or, if you guys are more comfortable with it, Google Docs works perfectly fine.
Right.
Just at least get your information down on a piece of paper. So
Right. So when you jot down certain things, like those things don't have to be sentences, right?
No, I mean, it could be bullet points. Words, ideas,
phrases.
if you like pictures, collages, why not?
Okay.
Right? But definitely this brainstorming process, you have to give yourself as many options as possible.
Right. Even if you have a great idea that once comes into your one head, it could just go out the other side.
Yeah.
So it's best to just keep those things, in written form.
Yeah. So, we all have cell phones nowadays, right?
Right.
So when an idea just pops into your mind, right, just hop on, you have your notes on the phone, right? They have an application. So always write stuff down, right?
Okay.
So that you can always refer
and you
back
just
to
start organizing things so they just pull things out.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, very good.
Okay. All right. What's the next step?
All right, so let's see. So let's say you brainstormed your ideas and then you created a draft. Now it's the editing process, which is more than half the fight, in my opinion, right? Like drafting, getting the idea, like that's how difficult this writing process is. When you edit, there cannot be too many editors. With a little asterisk, and we're going to explain the little details on that. So peer editing, have others read your essay. Those that you trust. Do not show your essays to people you don't trust, right? It doesn't make sense, right? This is definitely a personal essay for you, right? There's a lot of personal information there. So make sure that, you ask for opinions of people that you can trust, friends, family members, mentors, teachers, professors, or, anyone that you really trust and that you believe that will have a strong or, a useful opinions about your essay, kind of expressing yourself. Yeah.
So basically when you say like editing or peer editing, so what is the extent that you expect from your peers?
Oh, okay. So the thing is that let's say I have 1,000 friends that I trust deeply,
Okay.
and then I give them my essay and I get 1,000 comments from them.
Right.
The one thing that I learned from Hopkins, like my professors told me, that of all the comments that you hear or listen to, it's not good to listen to all of them, right?
Okay.
If we listen to all of our comments and our comments that people have given us or shared with us, we would have a Frankenstein of an essay, right? It would be all over the place. There's no real direction. So you have to be extremely careful in picking out which comments to listen to, right? I would listen to my English teacher, right?
Okay.
I would listen to certain professors, certain mentors, definitely, because they have had previous experience with this stuff. So they know, what to look for and what really to shine through. But picking out these edits is definitely one of the more difficult aspects. And you just have to make sure that you have a clear idea of what you want to express and what edits will help, pull that out of your essay.
Right. So basically, that's why you don't want to have too many editors, because you need to keep your voice consistently throughout your essay.
Yes.
But if you listen to too many people, just patchy here and there, obviously, you're going to lose your consistency and everything.
Definitely. So we want to be as consistent as possible when we write these essays.
Okay, well, that sounds fair. All right, and then what will be the next step?
Okay, so the next step is revision, and students hate this process because students believe that if they, see little highlighted comments on their essays or little tweaks and fixes, that if you only do a few of these things, a good essay will all of a sudden turn great, or a bad essay will turn good, right? But the thing is that that's not the case, right? My greatest advice that I can give to students is write it again. Take the essay at a different angle, right? Maybe start your story in a different way, right? So this way, it really gives you a lot of variety when it comes to, this way was a little bit better than that way, right? And remember, these essays are incredibly important, so rewriting it is definitely worth it. And on a personal note, one of my favorite authors is Hemingway, and in his novel Farewell to Arms, he wrote 47 different endings.
Wow, that's a lot of different endings.
Yeah, so it took him 47 different endings to figure out which one was the correct one.
Okay.
And if Hemingway, who is such an amazing, great writer, has to rewrite his endings, I think that we should have to rewrite our essays as well.
I mean, obviously students will not have like a direct or curved version of essays, but
Yes.
but you encourage students to try to write like the same essay with a different angles, 3 different drafts.
Yeah, I mean, as many drafts as you can, because in my opinion, like each draft will have its strength,
Right.
you know,
Right, okay.
so that you can kind of like, maybe there's one essay that you really like, but there's an aspect of a separate essay that you really enjoyed how you brought out your characteristics. So maybe you can like kind of slot that in to your main essay too. So this is the benefit of having so many different drafts.
Right. I mean, obviously this is going to be a really arduous task for students.
Yeah.
Right. But definitely should be worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So, and also the one thing that I see really stops students from making amazing essays is that sometimes they get really hooked on like a specific line that they wrote and they're like, wow, I'm such a poet, or like, wow, I'm such a great writer because of this sentence or this paragraph. But sometimes those really well-written paragraphs or sentences don't really match the message of the essay. You know, they don't really answer the question, or it doesn't really serve a purpose, but it is beautifully written. This is a 650-word essay about your personal story. To be honest, students should struggle to, you know, put their life story in 650 words, right? So you really should be efficient with the space that you use, right? You're not there to show them how frilly or amazing your language can be. This is a personal story, right? So I would definitely take out those sentences, right? So guys, if you guys like love a certain line, but it doesn't really serve its purpose, don't be afraid to delete it, right? And make space for more resolution and growth that you want to show in your essay.
So simply like other mission officers are not going to be mesmerized by like a beautiful language.
Oh, no, no. They will be
professional.
mesmerized by the story and the message that you have in your essay, right?
Okay. I mean, because a lot of kids will be tempted to quote some kind of beautifully written phrases from different books or something like that. Or even they will be tempted to copy some successful essays. Since we brought that up in the previous slides.
So like, yes, there are students who can say, wow, this kid wrote this part really well and I could just copy. Don't do that, right? First of all, the voice doesn't line up with yours, right? And that change in voice or that change in writing style, the admissions officers can immediately tell what's going on, right? So never try to beat them, right? They're paid a salary to do this. So, and they've probably been doing this for many years. So like, understand that that don't play a game with them, right? They're going to win every single time. So be very, very careful with like, or just never plagiarize.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, next.
All right.
Right. A lot of parents are asking about like, okay, then what are the things to keep in mind when my child is writing this and stuff like that? So let's go over those things.
All right. Things to avoid and consider. Okay. Cliches. This is a very hard topic to talk about because we have situations where everybody writes about their immigration story, or everybody writes about, oh, I went to church, went to a third world country and I helped, you know, a community out. They sometimes talk about the struggles of others, right? Especially siblings. I have many situations where a student would have a sibling who has some, you know, medical complications or anything like that. And like they're trying to make their siblings' hardships theirs, right? And there are certain moments where you can bring it out, right? Maybe in a sentence or two, how you've helped them and stuff like that. But if you only focus on that, what ends up happening is that the essay is no longer about you, right? It's about the struggles of another person. And definitely, if the essay is about you, why should you be wasting time, you know, doing that? So, and also do not talk about the achievements of others as well, right? This is ultimately an essay about you.
Right, and what your parents have achieved and
what
kind of family your family is and stuff like that.
Yes, that is completely irrelevant when it comes to, I mean, if you want to describe like maybe like your background, right? And like why you are from a certain like privileged community or certain like that, maybe it is, you know,
how your parents' leadership and achievement has influenced you so that you could do.
Yes, very much. So like there are appropriate moments here and there. There's no like hard rule when it comes to writing these essays, but you do have to be very careful because you don't want to be the cookie cutter same student essay, right? You definitely want your essay to pop, right? These admissions officers are reading hundreds and hundreds of essays, right? So if your essay is the same topic as, you know, 30, 40 other students, right? And you don't have an interesting take on it, right? You can have an immigration story, you can have a mission trip story, but you have to present it in a manner where, you know, it's unique to your own, right? Like a unique experience that you have. One thing was like a mission trip, there was a student who like very proficient at Spanish, right? And she actually became a translator, right?
Okay.
And during that mission trip, and I think that was an excellent, an excellent like twist to that mission trip essay. So I think that worked very well. Yeah. So there are exceptions to the rule, but I don't necessarily I would definitely try to avoid these things and try to look for other things to write about.
But we're trying to say that you can still try with any of the topics, but we have to be really careful.
Yeah.
Give yourself a second thought to make sure that your essay topics are something that you really, just part of your essay, right?
Yeah. And then you want that uniqueness,
right?
That uniqueness. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So let's continue.
Language, right?
Yes. This is actually, there are a lot of times where students treat the admissions officers like their friends. Please don't do that, right? Like this is very much a formal setting. So I would refrain from use of formal, I would always try to use formal, appropriate language, right? So, I mean, if there's dialogue in your essay, and like friends are talking to friends, in that situation, I would imagine colloquial diction is appropriate, right? Like, hey, what's up? Or something like along the lines of that. But when you're referring to the admissions officer, when you're talking about yourself, I would definitely refrain from, if I can use formal and appropriate language, when I can, I would definitely would.
Right, right. How about using some enhanced words, some like a difficult like words?
Oh, okay. So this is a touchy subject. You must be good. You have to be really good at picking out the right words, right? Oftentimes students just run to a thesaurus, right? And just kind of look through oh, I found a word, right? Just try to find any other word that sounds or looks fancier. Oftentimes those words are not appropriate for those situations, right? And the thing is that a really good writer will pick and choose the vocabulary that he wants, right? It shouldn't be every other word is some SAT or college word, right? It should very much be hand-selected and very sparingly used, because if you just oversaturate your essay with fancy words, it's obvious, right? The AOs understand that what you're trying to do. You're dancing in front of them, right? Trying to show off, or trying to come off as someone who's smarter, more a lot more smarter than they actually are. So please refrain from doing that. It's a lot of AOs will see a bunch of jargon and they'll be like, oh, well, what's going on here, right? So sometimes and it also helps the clarity of your essay, right? If you pick and choose your vocabularies very carefully. Things to avoid and consider: punctuation and grammar. This seems very obvious, but a lot of students have made many, many mistakes here, okay? If your essay is not error-free, especially with the obvious grammar mistakes, it shows that you didn't put as much effort into it, right? Even if you did spend about 10 hours, 20 hours, 100 hours editing your essay, but you missed that one comma, the admissions officer is going to notice it, and your hundreds of hours or long extended hours of working on your essay won't really reflect there. So you must have perfect, immaculate grammar when submitting these essays. Yes, we can use autocorrection. Yes, we can use programs like Grammarly. But these programs are far from perfect. Those programs still make mistakes, right? And we must, not rely on these things, right? And, rely on professionals if possible, right? Or just read it over very closely, see how, certain clauses, whether they're essential, non-essential, for our basic grammar rules and stuff like that.
Even for the simple grammar rules, sometimes Grammarly or auto corrections are wrong sometimes.
Yes, actually.
Right.
So sometimes I have it where I'm helping a student with an essay and Google Docs says it's wrong. And I can guarantee you that Google Docs has many situations where the autocorrection of the program there is completely wrong. So there are situations where it does help, but they are not the end all be all, right? Definitely get somebody who understands their grammar, right? Who understands how things work, so that, you can make sure that your essay is.
So probably a peer editing probably comes in a good play here, because when you read your essay over and over again, the more you read your essay, the less likely you're able to catch some errors and grammar.
Yes. Oh, actually, based on since you bring that up, if you actually write your essay, and then what writers do is that they actually don't even look at their works, like their pieces
Right.
for weeks or months at a time even, right? But for our essay, we cannot do that. We do not have that time.
Right.
But sometimes I like to leave the essay aside for maybe a week, right? And this is why we do it in advance.
At least
right?
like a couple days.
Yeah, for a couple days. And then what happens is that when you come back to the essay, like certain lines that you thought were good, all of a sudden sound bad. And you're like, oh my God, right? Like, why did I write this, right?
Or you can just notice some grammar errors later.
Yes, and then that too. Yes, of course, you're right. And then when you put it on ice and you come back to it, looking at your essay with fresh eyes definitely accentuates certain errors that comes out of your essays as well. Yeah.
All right. Comprehensive grammar review. I mean, we discussed a good amount of time on the importance of a perfect grammar and all that, right?
Yes.
But it could be only achieved through like a thorough proofreading.
Yes.
Right?
And the thing is, it's not even just simple grammar rules, right? It's not just the comma or the usage of the semicolon or colon, like do we use an em dash here? Like what's better? It's how we phrase our sentences too. Right. Sometimes students are overly verbose, right? Where words like 3 or 4 words can do the job. Sometimes students use 2 sentences to express the same idea, right? And 650 words, that's a lot of air, right? And there's no actual substance there.
Right.
So definitely efficiency of language and strong grammar rules, definitely make a very, very good essay.
And one of the common mistakes in regards to like a grammar is dangling modifier.
Yes, definitely.
A lot of students, even though they read it over and over again, if I have them read it over and over again, they're not going to be able to discern, right?
Yes. Right. Dangling modifiers, actually, a lot of students actually like to write with dangling modifiers for some apparent reason. I see this error a lot where, they describe someone or something in the beginning clause and they don't follow it the proper subject, right? And that definitely comes off as a weak writer, not being able to pick up these things. Right. So definitely when it comes to addressing grammar and just everything else with the essay, just proofread as much as possible. Right. Really try to be efficient with language and be correct with all the grammar rules.
Right. So that's why your friends could be a great like a PI editor.
Yes.
And so your brothers, sisters,
yes.
But make sure that at least one of the persons who have sufficient abundance, experience, and good understanding of grammars. Redress it.
Because sometimes your friends might not know the differences between
your brothers, sisters.
The colon and semicolon. So you have to make sure that at least you have an expert look at it, because or a teacher, right? Obviously your English teacher is a great supplement for this as well. So definitely have somebody look at it with experience. Right?
Okay, sounds great. Shall we move on?
Okay.
All right, let's briefly go over some. Obviously, we're not going to go over the entire essay.
No,
we just wanted to just make some kind of points here, right?
Yes, definitely. So, guys, so this essay title is called String Theory, and it's from the aforementioned Hopkins link that we showed for Hopkins essays that worked. And I'm going to read out the first paragraph so we get to kind of have a sense of what this student, started their essay with.
Okay.
So, string theory. If string theory is really true, then the entire world is made up of strings, and I cannot tie a single one. This past summer, I applied for my very first job at a small, busy bakery and cafe in my neighborhood. I knew that if I were hired there, I would learn how to use a cash register, prepare sandwiches, and take cake orders. I imagined that my biggest struggle would be catering to demanding New Yorkers, but I never thought that it would be the benign act of tying a box that would become both my biggest obstacle and greatest teacher.
Okay.
So
it's a very mundane thing. Like basically, this person happens to be working at a bakery cafe,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Okay.
So, guys, key points about this essay. Mm-hmm. This student does not solve, world hunger, right? Does not solve racism, right? Does not, cure cancer, right? The subject is very mundane, right? The student is tying a box around a cake box, right? Around the cake box. So it's a mundane subject, but it's very personal, right? And it shows voice and character, right? I very much like the introduction of the essay, right? The first sentence, right? Mm-hmm. And also how he concludes the first paragraph, greatest teacher, and be a greatest challenge as well. So guys, you do not need to be the hero of your story, right? Or of anyone's story, right? These stories can be interesting even with the simplest of subjects, the most boring of subjects, right? And I think that this is why a lot of students have trouble here. This is the biggest thing. They don't know where to start.
Right.
They think that a lot of students say, oh, I haven't done anything interesting.
Right.
You know, I haven't done anything extraordinary. And I challenge them to that statement, because I think that's not true, right? I think every student, you know, they've lived life for about 16, 17 years, right? There has to be some interesting story there, right? So I very much doubt, you know, every single student that has come to me that said, I don't know what to write about, we're proved wrong in the end of the day, right?
Okay.
So, yeah.
Right.
So also the good thing about this essay that we just saw, if you notice, if you read further into the essay, I think this was from 2018 or 2016, I'm pretty sure it was 2018. The essay showed mastery in a humble manner, right? I mean, he begins with string theory, right? And it shows his familiarity with very complex science subjects. And if you notice, if you read the rest of the essay later on, the student even mentions that, you know, why can't I tie this string? All right, I can do, you know, multivariable calculus. I can do these, you know, complicated science questions, but why can't I tie this box? Right. And I think that the way he portrayed his strengths, right, is not bragging. You know, he just really mentions it because it contrasts well with him tying the string around the box. Okay. So, in my opinion, he did it. He answered, you know, he was able to show off in a very humble manner. And that is very important, right? You don't want to be that show off, right? And, you know, if you show arrogance, like maybe there are certain situations where it is important, but to be arrogant and to have that as a mainstay in your essay, definitely I would stay away from that. You don't want to come off as an arrogant student.
Okay, right.
Very good. So the biggest thing that we have to answer at the end of the essay is the so what question. The so what question is, so what? Okay, you've had this experience tying a box, so what, right? And for this student, the way he answers it is, no matter what challenge I face, whether it be tying a shoe or tying a box, or, you know, going to school, taking, you know, the hardest classes, doesn't matter what challenges he faces, right? He's committed to, you know, overcoming them all, right? And he doesn't care about whether it's an important or not important thing. It's just a challenge that's set in front of him, and he's determined to overcome them all. Right. So that's why this essay works so well, right? Even such a mundane, simple subject can be, you know, used to, you know, really convey great character when it comes to a student. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Shall we move on?
So yeah.
Supplemental essays. There are so many different kinds of supplemental essays, and a lot of parents were asking about specifics of like certain essays, but we're just gonna go over in a brief and general manner because
it would take too long.
Right. But again, if you just email us individually, we're gonna try our best to answer those questions. Okay.
So how to write supplemental essays, right? So what are they? What are supplemental essays? They're extra essays that are required by select schools. Certain schools have them. Many schools have them, and certain schools don't. Right.
As short as like 100 characters.
Yeah.
As long as like 5 or 6 words.
Yes, I think the longest was like the limit was like 1,000 words, but I think that was for Williams or something like that. But those are very rare. Most of them range from about 100 to 300 words. Right. That's what you can expect. So some are very similar to the common application, like the main essay prompt. Right. Please do not use the same material. Right. If I talk about tying a cake box, I am not going to write about tying a cake box in my supplemental essay, right? If I talk about my medical internship in my main essay, I do not want to talk about my medical internship in my supplemental essay, right? The essay is a moment to show variety, right? Colleges don't want that, you know, 4.0, 1600 student that just studies now. They very much want to avoid those students now, actually. You want to show that you're diverse, right? As they say, the Renaissance man, right? Like to be able to, you know, have mastery in many different subjects, right? So it's not just this one perfected, you know, GPA or SAT score. They want to see variety, right? And depth in a student. Yeah. So what's the point of like these essays? It like I said, it's to add depth, and it's to add depth to your character. And here you can demonstrate creativity and genuine interest. And we'll go into, you know, the specific details as we go.
But there are two types of prompts, right?
Yes, two types.
Right. The
Generally.
standard questions and creative questions, right?
Yes. So for the standard questions, we have why school, why major.
Mhm.
So NYU would say, why would you like to come to NYU?
Right.
What about NYU do you like? Or certain schools will ask, why have you selected a certain major? Right? They want to see your interests, right? Your main, like why you want to be there. And also they can ask your role in community, right? And how your role in that community can
Or how can you contribute
to the campus's community.
Right.
So those are your standard questions. But then certain schools like their creative questions, right? That aren't necessarily like why major, why school. It would be more of like, what's your favorite book, right? Tell us about it, right? What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite song, right? Where would you go back in time, right? What would you do if you met somebody? Yeah.
Right.
So there are a lot of, and with those creative questions, I would approach creatively, right? I try to pick out, interesting answers. And for standard questions, it would be a lot of research, right? And trying to get to understand what a school provides.
Then how can we approach to this type of question, essays, right?
Okay, so there are many different approaches that we can take, but for the standard question, we're going to take an example. So let's say I am a student who is undecided, right, and I want to go to NYU.
Right.
I think that is a really good pick because the NYU College of Arts and Sciences have this core curriculum program, right? So let's just go over the steps first of how we go about researching or writing our essays. There's 3 steps. It's research, understand, and convince. First, you research the school website, right?
That's the very first place you could begin your implement as a writing journey, right?
Yes, and dig deep.
Dig
deep. No, the headlines of the main homepage of the article of the school should not really be used as the main
of course.
content. We should be looking at class names, professors, right? What do they teach? What have they researched, right? This is the type of information that is available and that you need to dig really deep into and find things that you are genuinely interested in and that makes sense on your application, right? So if I have done shadowing as a doctor, right? And if there's opportunities to shadow doctors at a certain university, that would make sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't randomly start talking about woodshop, right? And all these random things. So definitely make sure that what you find at schools line up with the interest that you have shown, throughout your application. That's very important. And then it's to understand, reconcile information. We are not making a collage of all the things that the school provides. It needs to make sense, right? And you need to understand what the school, because every school has a different curriculum of how they want their undergraduates to go from freshman to senior year and like the education that they provide or the core teachings that they provide there. So when it comes to NYU College of Arts and Sciences, right, they do have a program called the Common Core, right? And the Common Core is very interesting. You actually don't declare your major until junior year, right? Until the end of your sophomore year. And what happens is that during freshman and sophomore year, students have to actually take a bunch of core classes. So every student at the College of Arts and Sciences, the first 2 years look very similar. Their electives might be slightly different, but the core curriculum is always the same, meaning that this school prioritizes teaching their students a strong liberal arts core curriculum so that they can be enabled to succeed in the specific major that they choose junior year. Yes, you can have an intention. You can go into the College of Arts and Sciences and say, oh, I want to major in this major, for whatever reason. But in my opinion, if you go as an undecided, there's so much to write about. There's so much to write about here because the school really opens the door up to people who are unsure, because you get to explore different subjects while taking the core curriculum. So you're not falling behind on any classes or credits, right? By switching majors, like you still build that. So that's what it means to understand. It's not just to take the information. It's just to really deeply, intimately understand how a school wants to graduate their undergraduates and prepare them for, graduate or, their careers, right? Yeah. And then convince, right? You have to convince
officers.
Yes, convince the admissions officers. Yes, more specifically, convince the admissions officers that you are interested. Right, show genuine interest. Right, as an undecided major, I want to explore so many different things. Right, and the CAS, Common Core really provides that for me. Right, and then all the different specific details would have to go in there. So this is a way where we can approach the standard question. It requires a lot of
many examples.
Yeah, many examples, but. The research aspect takes a lot of time.
Right.
I've seen it numerous times where students just give generic answers. And, why would a school accept a student who gives generic answers that can be copy pasted to every other university, right? It needs to be specific to NYU, it needs to be specific to Villanova, to Hopkins, to Harvard, wherever you want to apply.
And do not copy paste it from its very website.
Yes, do not copy from the copy paste from the website. Yes,
those
very
people
much.
know better than you do.
Yes,
So,
yes. I mean, they have their, they posted themselves. So yes, be very careful about that.
Right. I mean, creative questions. We need to be creative.
Yes.
In a nutshell.
I mean, there's nothing there's nothing more than that. You have to try to be creative as possible. So let's take a question, like example question. If you could meet anyone, who would it be? Right. Avoid cliche answers. Right. Steve Jobs. Right. I guess that's kind of interesting.
LeBron James.
Yeah, like these things. I mean, unless you can really show that passion in these words, and unless you can really have an interesting, unique twist to it, I would stay away from cliches. I would pick very unique characters from history or from present day that really that not a lot of people know about, but are phenomenal and amazing that you would actually want to meet.
Right.
So please genuinely answer the question. Right. Genuinely answer it.
Okay, answering to creative questions is that difficult. So there are so many different approaches based on the prompt.
Yeah.
Okay, there's no one like a universal way to approach it, this kind of thing.
Yes. Right? So the standard questions, yes, there is kind of a methodical approach to it. But for these creative questions, really, it's in your arms. Yeah, very much so.
All right. Out of the many questions, I believe that we have covered the majority of the questions from parents. We just chose a couple questions. We discussed them in details, but we want to make sure that those questions are answered. So let's move on.
Okay.
One of the things is that what is the most important area to address in your essay? This is a very good question, actually.
Yes.
It's an excellent question.
So what if a student has leadership, passion, and commitment, right? What if a student have all these three things? Which one should I really accentuate? The answer is all of them.
Right. I mean, so in my mind, to my perspective, actually, a good candidate to any college are expected to possess all those three traits, right?
Yes. And the thing is that it shouldn't be a situation where all these three aspects are fighting over the page space, right? Like saying, oh, I'm more important. No. There are very subtle and great ways where you can show leadership without saying, I have leadership, right?
Of course.
I want to very much... to say I am humble is the least humble thing you can do, right? And very much like that, you don't want to say I have leadership, I have passion, right? There are ways we can show, not tell, as many of your English teachers have said, but this aspect is actually quite difficult, the showing, not telling, especially in a very short, like 650 words or 300 words, whether we're dealing with the main or supplement essay. So yeah, wherever I can, I want to be able to show these things, but I don't want to like shove it in their face, and like be obnoxious about it. So there are tactful ways where we can definitely do these things.
But again, I mean, probably the most important thing other than those three traits would be still the voice and the character.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, so keep those maintained.
Next question. These two questions are essentially the same thing, right? Does each essay have to differ when applying to different schools or universities, or is the basic approach for common application essay same or different for different colleges?
Okay, so as we addressed before, the coalition essay, right? Yes, you can copy paste from the Common App, right? A lot of the prompts are exactly the same. And if you notice, the coalition essay will also have like that open-ended prompt where it's not very specific. But so yes, in those situations, as long as the word count fits, right, you can copy and paste. There's no reason to rewrite or reinvent the wheel, right? So if you have a functioning essay, no, they're not going to cross-reference each other. No, this is not plagiarism because it's in your own words. Right. So feel free to copy paste if the main essay, or if it's appropriate. If two schools ask the same question, what's your favorite book, right? It would be very appropriate, right, to be able to copy paste. But sometimes the word count is different, right? So there certain essays should have more detail, and certain essays you should pull it back a little bit. And the basic approach for a Common App essay is the same or different for different colleges. It's very rare where a student would write multiple college applications, like the main essay, the 650 word one. That is extremely rare, but I have seen it, be effective from time to time, right, based on a certain school and their tendencies. But, that's a whole metagame to play, and it's more complicated. And I just want to advise students, don't worry about writing more than one common application essay, right? Just get the best one, right? If you have 5, please pick the best one. right? And understanding what schools think and all that stuff, I think that's way too complicated to get into.
Right.
And I think you should just put your best foot forward with the best essay that you have.
Right. Even for supplemental essays,
Mhm.
for example, like a wide major,
Mhm.
right? If you apply to different two schools for the same major,
Mhm.
it's likely that you're able to copy and paste. But even then, you have to be careful, right?
Yes. Because the thing is that, yes, let's say Harvard and Yale, let's just say, they both ask, I don't think this is the case, but, we're just going to make a thought experiment. If Harvard and Yale were to ask, what is your major, and how will our facilities, enable you to succeed in that field? The beginning portion of sharing why you're interested would be the same.
Right.
But the facility should be different,
or
right?
Programs.
Yes.
Or whatever, right?
If you're writing about Yale's program and Harvard's essay, they're going to throw out your application, right? And vice versa as well. So yes, certain aspects can be copied, right? Because it's a lot more efficient that way. But when it comes to the specifics of each school, you should definitely tailor your response to each school for that, for anything specific.
So just let me wrap it up. So I'll summarize it. So common application it's unlikely, very rare that you just have more than one personal statement.
Yes.
But for like a supplemental essays.
Yes.
For same or similar topics, you have to be careful. So maybe it's likely that you're likely to come up with like multiple draft, for each and every school.
Yes, very much so. Yeah. So each school should have its own tailored response to it, right? So that works a little bit better.
All right. Final comments. Okay. So basically, this is very important. So we always encourage juniors when the final exams are approaching. We always encourage and let them know that they have to start writing their writing essay process anytime soon. But in June, as soon as the finals are over,
you got to start writing.
Yeah,
you got to start
their backpacks and they're like free souls right now. So, but we strongly recommend juniors start their essay writing process when they finish their final exams.
Right? Yeah, I mean the main reason is because of early decision and early action, right? Early decision and early action, yes, they do give you a higher chance of getting into the school, right? And there's other than ED, I would suggest all students do early action, right? Because early decision is a binding contract. So you literally have to sign a digital contract with the school saying that I will not apply to other schools' early decision. And if you do get into school, other than very extenuating circumstances, 99% of the time you have to commit to that school. So since that's the case, early decisions, November 1st, November 15th, November 30th. If you start in the beginning of senior year, September, November, you only have 1 month, right? And in my opinion, 1 month is way too short of a time period to create an amazing application. And, if you really want to go to a certain school, right, and you want to ED there, right? I early decision to Hopkins. I made sure my essay was flawless, right, way before, because the application time scale is so much closer. Yes, most schools have their regular decisions in January, right, December, right, depending on the school, but you shouldn't be looking at that, right? You should be looking at November 1st, November 15th as your deadline. This way, you can do early action, which is a non-binding. So early decision is binding, early action is non-binding in the sense that you can apply and you don't have to go if you get in. So I would at least recommend every single student to do an early action application. So therefore, you must start writing your essays towards the end of junior year.
Right.
So you give your
seems like summer is students will have plenty of time, but it's
they don't.
Not the case.
No, they don't. I mean, you feel like you have a lot of time, but when you're up the day before the due date and you're and you regret not doing it earlier, you don't want to ever be in that situation. So always start as early as possible, and the good time period is right at the end of junior year.
Right. Okay. And again, we've been repeating this thing, throughout our presentation. So a common application essay is a story about yourself. It's a prose.
Yeah, more than prose, more than an essay. It is prose, really, and you want to show character, growth, and passion. Most importantly, right? Those are the really three things that we want to emphasize.
And number 3,
do not underestimate these essays. It won't be easy to write great essays. It never is. Writing is always a challenge, right? The great writers of the past always, struggle with their own writing, right? And, it just goes to show how difficult it is to write a very convincing piece of writing. So do not underestimate these essays.
Right.
Never say I can do it in the last week. No, you can't, right?
No.
Right. It is so difficult to make a great essay that this is why we suggest that you start as soon as possible. So
Right. You need to have a good plan, strategies, topics, and most importantly, commitment.
Yeah. So don't underestimate these things, guys. They're very serious, very difficult to make a really good application. So start early, and yes, that's what I'm going to leave you guys with.
Okay, I think it's done pretty much.
Yeah.
All right. Again, let me apologize for the trouble again. So if you have any other questions and you feel like some of the questions were not answered, or if you have come up with other questions, please feel free to reach out to us so that we can try to get back to you as much as we can. All right. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I will be sharing the presentation when it is uploaded. I will email all registrants. And thank you again, Justin and William, for
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you again. Have
All
a
right.
good day.
Have a good night. Bye.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.